Okay, you've just watched the YouTube video on how to avoid plagiarism that was generously shared online by Bainbridge State College. There is a lot of good information there. However, it did not go far enough, and I think you will have problems if you write paragraphs like the example in the video. Okay, in particular, the video shows that the way to solve plagiarism is just by putting the name of the source in parentheses at the end of the paragraph. The problem with that is that it remains unclear how much of that paragraph actually came from the source. Okay, if the entire paragraph came from some source, I would probably reject your paper because you haven't done any of your own thinking. Hello, you need to have some of your own ideas. Okay, now ideally you should start the paragraph by stating one of your own ideas and then quote the source to support it, making sure it's crystal clear where the quotation came from, and comment upon that quotation. Tell how what's your opinion? Are they correct? Do you agree with what the source is saying? Now you need to use language within your paragraph to cue your reader when you are referring to a source. What happens if you start your paragraph and you quote a source, and later in that same paragraph you want to refer back to that source again? You need to have language that lets the reader know that's happening. Start with those two magic words, according to. And as you refer again to the source, say something like the source goes on to say, or the article continues, or some such language so that your reader knows you're using someone else's idea or language there. And use quotation marks, you guys. Very important, those two quotation marks. I don't like paraphrase, and if you use the paraphrase is trying to put a quotation into your own words, that's a really bad idea because it leads a lot of people down the road of plagiarism. And if you've got a source in front of you while you're writing your paper, quote it. Use their exact words, make it clear you're quoting that source. And putting it into your own words, oftentimes I will just reject essays that do that. So quote your source directly. It's a terribly plagiarized body paragraph that breaks the rules we were just talking about. Let's read it together and see what went wrong. Higgins shows Eliza the typical disregard that the rich hold for the poor, telling her that she should go marry someone. He then suggests that perhaps his mother can find Liza a prospective husband, as if this suggestion itself is an act of charity. What he fails to realize, and the reason Liza is so angry, is that merely altering Liza's outward appearance does not alter her economic disadvantage. She now feels alienated from the gutter where Higgins found her, but she is equally an outsider. Try to get this a little bit bigger. She is equally an outsider to Higgins's world of class and wealth. And then we end with citing Johnson. Okay, well, the problem for me is I don't know what in this paragraph actually came from Johnson. There's not any quotation marks, so they're making it sound like it's all the student's own words. But honestly, you guys, does this sound like a student wrote it to you? It doesn't to me. I'm very suspicious that the student is plagiarizing language from Johnson and maybe from somewhere else too. Who knows? So the problem is here, we don't know what in this paragraph came from Johnson, and we don't know which of these words might have been Johnson. They don't seem to be that original to me. So let's see how we could fix this. But before we do, let's see what happens when you do something this terrible. It causes a gnome to vomit into a toilet. And if this looks to you like a gnome puking a rainbow into a toilet, you are exactly right. That's what's happening. And it's all because of this terrible, vomitous, plagiarized body paragraph. Now to repair this, we could maybe do a couple things as seen in this next paragraph. And notice how it starts. It starts with those two magic words, according to. According to one critic, Higgins shows Eliza, quote, notice the quotation mark, shows Eliza the typical disregard that the rich hold for the poor, unquote, telling her she should go marry someone. And then we have the citation, some guy named Doe, as our source. That's interesting because we were thinking it was Johnson, but now it's Doe. What's going on? Then notice the language to cue the reader that we're still using this source. The critic goes on to explain that Higgins then suggests that perhaps his mother can find Liza a prospective husband, quote, as if this suggestion itself is an act of charity. And then we go to Johnson. Lionel Johnson, in an essay, argues that, quote, what Higgins fails to realize, and the reason Liza is so angry, is that merely altering Liza's outward appearance does not alter her economic disadvantage. Johnson goes on to write, notice the language here to cue us that we're still referring to Johnson. Johnson goes on to write that Eliza, quote, now feels alienated from the gutter where Higgins found her, but she is equally an outsider to Higgins's world of class and wealth. Okay, great. We got rid of the plagiarism. We now have properly attributed things to who said them, and when we've used the actual language, we've actually quoted it directly with the quotations. So much improved. However, if you were my student and you wrote this, I would ask you to go back and work on this paragraph some more, because honestly, you guys, is there anything in this paragraph that sounds like the student has his or her own opinion? No. And I want you to do some of your own thinking. So, do you agree with Doe? Doe is correct because, or here Doe is making too sweeping of a statement because. So at the end, when you talk about this, have something to say about this, okay? This is totally true. Eliza is very angry. She doesn't feel like she's been able to adapt to this new world of Higgins. So jump in with your own summary of the issue and have your own idea. That's missing in this paragraph, so it's still not quite done. I've done a pretty good job of showing you what my biggest concerns are with plagiarism in student essays. And let me tell you guys, this one thing I've talked to you about here is the number one problem I have with student essays where students are having to use an external source. This is so hard for people to get, but in each paragraph, you need to make it clear as you go through the paragraph what came from that source, and you need to have that language to cue the reader that you're using that source. And very importantly, you need to have some of your own ideas, okay, or your essay is not going to be acceptable. If you don't have your own ideas, go back, reread your material, do some thinking, all right? Look, we live in the information age, and everything's online at our fingertips, and plagiarism is rampant. And I don't accept it in my class, and you should not accept it in your personal work. Many people out in the world have been dreadfully embarrassed getting caught plagiarizing someone else's work. You don't want it to happen to you. All right, we'll talk further.